figured out what these powers are for.
Danny Phantom, a brand new Nicktoon series coming this April to Nickelodeon. Not seeing is believing.
Danny Phantom was one of many superhero cartoons from the 2000s that I was obsessed with, as the show centered around 14-year-old Danny Phantom, who after gaining ghost powers in a lab accident, would use those powers to protect his hometown from evil ghosts as the superhero Danny Phantom. And yes, despite how similar the names are, Danny's voice sounding exactly the same when he transformed and doing an awful job at hiding his secret identity, no one ever realized that they were the same person. Danny Phantom was the Nickelodeon equivalent of Spider-Man, which it drew heavy inspiration from, as it follows an unpopular teenager who must juggle his double lives as he fights a variety of foes who he'll constantly quip at. Though mixed in with that lies a seemingly unintended queer allegory, as Danny is afraid of how his ghost hunting parents will react to learning that he's half ghost. This added an extra level of depth to the show, which many fans have latched on to due to its relatability. It's honestly surprising that the show had that kind of relatability to it, since given that it was made in the 2000s, the show has some pretty dated jokes.
Boys hugging makes every yearbook funny.
But despite its rough edges, the show had plenty of redeeming qualities such as creative plots, fun characters, and solid comedy. And while its final season took a massive dip in quality, with it having one of the worst series finales I've ever seen, it didn't ruin the overall quality of the series for me, as the good still outweighed the bad. Danny Phantom is still one of Nickelodeon's most iconic shows, with it having a very active fandom despite the show being 20 years old, with new folks joining every day. The fandom is so active that when it was revealed that it would be getting a graphic novel continuation back in 2022, the internet exploded, with the sales being so good that a sequel was greenlit afterward. While part of Danny Phantom's popularity is due to it being a good show, the other part is due to the fandom fixation on what I consider to be the biggest problem of the series, its untapped potential. The show was good, but it could have been even better had it committed itself to the ideas and plot threads it would introduce, but rarely explode. When I rewatched the series, I got the vibe that it was a show fighting with itself over the kind of show it wanted to be, which ended up making sense upon the discovery of several behind the scenes details. In an old Danny Phantom forum that hosted an interview with Butch Hartman back in 2006, he went on to explain that neither the overall story of the series nor the story arcs that would be introduced were ever planned out in advance, which led to the story being made up as it went along while loosely tying things together. This was due to a combination of not knowing how long the show would continue, since Nickelodeon would only pick up more episodes if the ratings were good, plus Butch not knowing enough about the characters at that point to plan anything more than an episode or two in advance. While I understand the former, I do question the latter, cause after a certain point, you would think that Butch would have been familiar enough with the characters to better plan things out in advance with them. However, this may be a result of having no interest in delving deeper into the characters, as this was a source of conflict between the co-producer of the series, Steve Marmel. Whereas Butch wanted the show to be more episodic and lean more into comedy, Marmel wanted the show to be more serialized, with it delving more into its lore and characters. Supposedly, this disagreement is what led to him leaving the show for season 3, which is one of several factors as to why the final season was a disaster. Butch Hartman may have created Danny Phantom and many of its concepts, but he wasn't the one solely responsible for what made the show great. It's a shame that he never recognized the full potential of his series like the way both Marmel and the fandom do, as these are some of the characters and concepts that could have benefited from proper exploration.
Guess what, everybody? The best ghost hunter in Amity Park is here!
Valerie Gray is one of the best characters in Danny Phantom, which is what makes her wasted potential even more frustrating. At the beginning of the show, she starts off as your stereotypical rich mean girl who only cares about her popularity and wealth. Yet she would end up losing both of those things due to Danny accidentally getting her father fired from his job while chasing a ghost dog. Due to ghosts ruining her life, Valerie ends up developing a hatred for them, which is fueled by Danny's arch nemesis Vlad when he supplied her with ghost hunting weaponry. With her now having the weapon she needed to unleash her rage, she would end up becoming a ghost hunter and a recurring antagonist, with her having a personal vendetta towards Danny Phantom. The fact that the show decided to turn a background character into an antagonist that Danny unintentionally created was a genius idea, as it shook up the status quo while also giving Danny another villain besides Vlad who could serve as a reflection of himself. And it's fascinating how through the process of becoming a ghost hunter, Valerie slowly becomes a better person. While she initially became one to lash out at ghosts for costing her everything, she starts seeing it as a responsibility, with her wanting to keep people safe from them. Another great thing that came from Valerie becoming a major character was her complex relationship with Danny, which was filled with juicy drama. Keep in mind that Valerie had no idea that Danny Phantom was Danny Fenton, but Danny was aware of Valerie's secret. And even though she was no longer popular, Valerie still viewed Danny as a loser. But that would soon change, as they would later become friends, with even a romance blooming between the two, with them becoming my OTP of the show. Unfortunately, this is where things start to fall apart. Not because the romance was badly written, but rather because the idea is never used to its full potential. In the same episode where the two essentially become a couple, Valerie breaks up with Danny due to not wanting to see him get hurt from her ghost hunting duties, with this marking the last time she had a significant interaction with Danny Fenton. This includes the fact that we never got proper payoff of Valerie discovering that Danny is a ghost boy who ruined her life and seeing how she would have handled that. This stems from the bigger problem plaguing Valerie, in which out of the 53 episodes of the series, she's only a prominent character in 6 of them. Given the fact that she's a character who's deeply intertwined with Danny and Vlad, you would think she'd had more appearances, yet that isn't the case. There are several episodes in which she should have been prominent in, such as the episode where Walker invades Amity Park with his army of ghost guards, or the one where all the students of Casper High were getting ghost powers from ghost mosquitoes, just to name a few. Then there's the fact that the show barely explores Valerie's relationship with Vlad. The fact that Danny's arch nemesis was manipulating someone that Danny likes for his schemes, with Valerie being unaware of it, is such a fascinating concept. While Vlad just sees Valerie as a pawn he can use in a game, Valerie holds the highest respect for him due to how he put her on the path of being a ghost hunter and genuinely thinks that he's a good guy. There was so much more that could be done with this dynamic, especially if Vlad did start to care for Valerie in his own twisted way and began to see her as a daughter due to his desires of wanting to have a child of his own. But just like her relationship with Danny, her relationship with Vlad is never explored to its full potential, as Valerie only interacts with Vlad twice in the entire series. In the penultimate episode of the series, she discovers that Vlad has ghost powers, with her remarking that she'll be coming for him, yet that gets ignored entirely in the series finale, with her not having a single speaking line. This gets even more infuriating given the fact that Danny reveals his identity to the entire world, with Valerie just smiling and clapping with everyone else, even though that doesn't feel in character at all. There was so much more that could have been done with Valerie, only for her to get screwed over. And what's worse is that this wasn't what was intended for her, since Steve Marmel explained on Twitter that he wanted Valerie and Danny's storyline to be explored more in depth, but it ended up not being in the cards. But the future does look bright for her, as the ending of A Glitch in Time plus promo art for the sequel foreshadows that Valerie will finally be getting her proper due. Though Valerie isn't the only character that wasn't used to their full potential, as the show introduced many interesting characters who suffered the same fate. One villain that I'm shocked that the show didn't do more with was Walker, the self-proclaimed warden of the Ghost Zone who enforced his will onto ghosts and imprisoned any who breaks his flimsy rules. With how his debut episode revealed that he locked up many of Danny's other ghostly foes, with them teaming up to break out of his prison, Walker could have been a common enemy that both of them share. Like, if there was anybody that Danny's enemies should hate more than him, it should be Walker, given how he acts like he's in charge of the Ghost Zone. This would also better highlight the theme of how similar ghosts are to humans that the show would sometimes touch upon, since just like how not all people get along with each other, not all ghosts would get along, with them also having to deal with tyranny and injustice. Another character that could have served as a common enemy for both Danny and other ghosts is a charismatic but unhinged human villain, Freakshow. Whereas many of the human villains in the show sought to destroy ghosts, Freakshow was the opposite, as he came from a long line of performers who would control ghosts to put on spectacles of amazement in their traveling circus, along with stealing valuables in order to become rich. A character like Freakshow existing helps make the world and lore of the show feels bigger, and I can't help but imagine the other kind of stories that could have been told with him. His debut episode had him take control of Danny, but imagine if we had seen him take control of other ghosts from Danny's rogue gallery to do his bidding. In a show full of ghost hunters, having a human that looked to harness the powers of ghosts is a pretty clever shakeup. But of course, the show didn't capitalize on any of those ideas, as he was only prominent in 2 episodes, the second of which being the 44-minute special reality trip that ended up being a waste of time, since unlike the other specials of Danny Phantom, there was no change to the status quo. Speaking of time, that brings me to Clockwork, the master of time who, ironically, didn't have much screen time. Debuting in Ultimate Enemy, he was initially framed as an antagonist, with him being tasked to eliminate Danny to save the future, since he would grow to become the most evil ghost in the world. But it was clear that he had an agenda of his own, given how reluctant he was about destroying Danny, with his true colors being shown when he saves Danny's family and friends from the explosion that would have sent Danny on his dark path. Between knowing that time doesn't just flow in a straight direction and seeing all the effort Danny went through to save the people that he loves, which included fighting his evil future self, Clockwork decided to give Danny a second chance at life. Side note, the whole linchpin of Danny turning evil was due to him cheating on a test. Yes, there's more to it than that, like Danny seeing everyone he loved dying in an explosion and him literally losing his humanity, but it was him cheating on a test that started this chain reaction, which I find to be ridiculous. Now, the ending of The Ultimate Enemy seemed to imply that Clockwork will become a mentor figure towards Danny, as due to intervening with Danny's future, Danny was now his responsibility, but it doesn't go anywhere. He has one other prominent appearance in Master of All Time, in which he allows Danny to go back in time to prevent Vlad from ever getting his ghost powers. This is because in the present, Vlad has infected Sam and Tucker with the same ecto acne that is killing him to force Danny to save his life. I think there was some kind of lesson Clockwork was trying to teach Danny, as his efforts led him to an alternate timeline where Vlad ends up with Maddie and Jack is the one with ghost powers, but I honestly don't know what the lesson was supposed to be. And the fact that this was his last appearance in the show is even more baffling, considering how the series finale had both the human realm and the ghost zone in danger of being destroyed by the Disastroid. You would think with the stakes that high that the Master of Time would play a part in the story, but nope, he doesn't factor into the story at all. But out of all the wasted characters in the show, Danielle is the most wasted one, right next to Valerie. Danielle, also known as Stani but with an I because funny, is a failed clone experiment done by Vlad, as he attempted to create a clone of Danny so that he could finally have a son of his own, due to Danny constantly refusing to join his side. Honestly, with how much the show already copies from Spider-Man, I shouldn't have been surprised that they'd create their own Ben Reilly. Or maybe Jessica Drew would be more correct, given that Danielle is a girl. Jokes aside, Danielle is yet another amazing concept, with her being an interesting and tragic character. Unlike the other clones, Danielle was the only one to become fully sapient, with it being clear that she inherited many of Danny's traits, such as his sass and love for outer space. She's initially loyal to Vlad, as she sees him as her father, only to discover that Vlad doesn't care for her and instead sees her as a failure due to not being the clone of Danny that he wanted her to be. Naturally, this leads to her rebelling against him as she helps Danny, but then her debut episode ends with her deciding to explore the world, which makes zero sense. Why would you introduce a character like Danielle only for her to immediately leave instead of joining the main cast? her leaving makes even less sense since this episode sets up the fact that if she uses her powers too much, she will turn to goop and die. So why would she risk traveling despite that still being a problem for her? Heck, her second episode has it in which she returns to Amity Park to get help from Danny because of that. But wouldn't it have made more sense if she had just joined the main cast so that we could have seen Danny and Co try to find a cure for her before it was too late, while also getting to better know her and see her relationship with other characters be explored? Jazz has never even met Danielle, and Danny's parents don't know about her existence. It's just completely baffling that the show decides to give Danny a clone that was created by his arch nemesis, and it went ahead to do absolutely nothing with the concept. Supposedly in a hypothetical season 4, Danielle would have moved in with the Fentons, but it again makes me question why that wasn't done from the get-go. While Danny Phantom had a memorable cast of characters, a majority of them was underutilized. Ghost! Now alongside its superhero element, the other appeal of the series was its supernatural element, as Danny would meet many ghosts throughout the show, with them all stemming from the mysterious dimension known as the Ghost Zone. Yet for a show that centered around ghosts, it tended to avoid the fact that they are the spirits of people who have died. This is because Butch Hartman has gone on record saying that ghosts aren't dead people, but rather monsters from another dimension who simply look human.
Well, I'm convinced, folks, that's pretty much the stupidest thing I've ever heard!
Seriously, this explanation made no sense, as the show itself contradicted that with many of its characters, such as how Ember's song implies that she died in a fire, or the fact that Desiree was shown to originally be a human. There are a lot of stories that could have been done had they properly treated the ghosts as dead people, such as exploring their backstories, having Danny meet well-known historical figures, or exploring how festivals that celebrate the deceased, such as the Day of the Dead, would factor into this universe. Then there's the Ghost Zone, a location that for the longest time was never explained as anything more than where the ghosts live. Yet it seemed to be far more than that, as over the series, we would learn things such as how it was once ruled by an evil ghost king named Pariah Dog until he was overthrown, or how its survival was intertwined with the human world, since if either world was destroyed, the other would be destroyed in the process. But thanks to a glitch in time, we finally got some content that delves more into the show's supernatural roots. Ghosts are now the emotional manifestation of the humans they once were, with their purpose and desire being shaped by that emotion. As for the Ghost Zone, it's revealed that both it and the human realm used to be a single world up until a disharmony occurred that divided it into two separate realms. The realm of the living and the realm of the spirits, with this being against the natural order. I can't wait to see how Gabriella will continue to expand on this new lore she created, especially with Danny basically becoming the Avatar as he seeks to fix the divide by bringing the two worlds together, with him protecting both humans and ghosts.
Nice job, Danny. Or should we say, Danny?
Now, one of the recurring plot points of the show was Danny hiding his ghost powers from his parents due to being afraid that they would no longer love him and even experiment on him due to their hatred of ghosts. This was a pretty compelling aspect of the series that, as I mentioned at the start of this video, has been interpreted as a queer allegory by many people in the fandom. While teenage superheroes having to hide their alter ego from their parents is a pretty common trope, it always gets a bit juicier when that character's loved one has a hatred for said alter ego. Jack and Maddie aren't exactly the greatest parents in the world, as their passion for ghost hunting can make them neglectful and be unaware of how their actions can embarrass their kids. But for all their faults, they do love their kids, as they will jump at the opportunity to bond with them or risk their own lives to save them. Unfortunately, we've never gotten a proper exploration of Danny's parents learning about him being Danny Phantom and how they come to terms with it, as every time they do discover it, their memories are erased. The closest we've gotten was in Reality Trip, as the two are confused that Danny would keep such a secret from them since they love him, with Jazz saying this in response.
Let me guess.
Hey, Maddie, let's destroy the ghost!
No, Jack, let's dissect the ghost. You guys are so understanding.
I adore this scene, as Jack and Maddie are forced to confront the fact that despite loving Danny, they created an environment in which he believed that they wouldn't love him if he came out to them. And it's made even better when at the end of the episode, the two tell Danny that they'll love and accept him no matter who he is. Yet despite these claims, Danny chooses to wipe their memories when he decides to waste the entire world's memory that Danny Fenton is Danny Phantom, with it never even being explained as to why he did this. One of Danny's biggest fears was just put to rest, yet the show decides to set things back to the status quo. Imagine if season 3 was dedicated to exploring this new dynamic, with us getting things such as Jack and Maddie fighting ghosts with Danny, or them learning a lot about ghosts from him due to how much time he has spent with them. Now, the ending of A Glitch in Time altered the ending of the series finale, in which not only does no one remember how they survived the disasteroid, but no one outside of Danny and a select few remember that he's Danny Phantom, with Jack and Maddie unfortunately not being among them. While it is frustrating that their memory has been erased again, this does offer the opportunity for a proper reveal. The first 2 times they learned his secret, it was circumstances outside of Danny's control. And while he did willingly choose to reveal his identity to them in the finale, it felt less personal since he was also revealing it to the entire world. So it would be nice if when they do inevitably learn Danny's secret yet again, it would be done on Danny's terms, in which he would choose to go to them and reveal his secret rather than it being influenced by outside factors. While I'm excited to see how Gabriella Epstein will continue to explore the shoujo the graphic novels, I think it would benefit greatly from a well done reboot. Along with better exploring everything I already listed, it could do other things as well, such as reworking characters who lack depth to be more 3-dimensional, or leaning more into the horror aspect since it is a show that deals with the supernatural. Though I would still want it to keep some of its campiness, as it is one of the things that made the show so great. But what do you think of Danny Phantom? What aspects of the show do you wish were explored more in depth? And what would you want to see in a Danny Phantom reboot? Let me know in the comments below. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell so you'll be notified when I make a new video. Until next time, catch you later.